Hey, it's Amy Newmark. I'm off for another week of working on my book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, Maverick with a Mission. It's coming out in October and I have to finish it. So this week, we're going to replay our second week of the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast. These are episodes that ran in late February and early March. Chances are you haven't heard these yet, so I hope you'll enjoy them.
Changing your life one story at a time. This is the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast with Editor-in-Chief Amy Newmark.
Hey, it's Amy Newmark with your daily dose of Chicken Soup for the Soul inspiration. I love sharing my stories with you. I get to pick out the ones that have had the biggest impact on me, the ones that I can't get out of my head. And that's what I bring to you in this daily podcast. You know, we get thousands of stories submitted for every one of our books, and we only put 101 stories in each book. So it really is the cream of the crop that I get to talk about with you. And I do feel that these stories really do bring lessons to life because they're stories from real people, and they're experiencing real things that could happen to us too, so we can identify with them. It's an easy way to be inspired, and we love it. My whole staff and I, we love putting these books together for you. And this next story is a great example of what we're exposed to every day at work, and that is really powerful, positive thinking. Because what we've learned is that positive thinking can not only make something seem better, but can actually truly make it better. People talk about putting on rose-colored glasses, but what I've learned at Chicken Soup for the Soul is that if you put on rose-colored glasses, they don't just make things look rosy. Sometimes they really do change them for real. And here's a great example of that in a story from one of our regular writers, Jenny Ivey. The story is called The Honors Class, and it's from our book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Power of Positive. Here's what happened. Jenny was a first-year teacher, and she was very excited because she was given an honors U.S. history class for her first period, and she knew that that was a big deal because usually first-year teachers don't get honors classes. So first day of school, the kids shuffle in unenthusiastically. They're back at school. It stinks. She figured, well, that's just how they are, but she was so enthusiastic. So she got all perky and the kids stared at her, but she said, come on, let's rearrange our desks in a circle so we can have class discussions. And she just sprung into action, filled with vim and vigor for her honors U.S. history class. And she said to the kids, tell me what you don't like about history class. So they told her, and armed with that feedback, she made a plan. She wasn't going to teach them from the textbook. She wasn't going to make them read a chapter and then take a quiz. After all, the roster said this was an honors class. She was so lucky to have it. And these kids were bright and motivated, and they were there to learn. So she was going to teach them in the way they deserved to be taught. And she was surprised that a lot of these students used poor grammar and didn't have good writing skills, but they were in one of the toughest high schools in her area. So she figured, well, that's how it is. They were great kids, though, and she treated them that way, with the result that these kids really started to enjoy history, and they would come to her after-school study sessions, and 4 of them even entered a county-wide history contest, and they were ecstatic when they won an honorable mention trophy. The school year came to an end much quicker than Jenny could have imagined. It was a great first year for her, and she couldn't help it. She wasn't supposed to have favorites, but really her favorite kids were the kids in her first period honors class. Every single one of them passed. Hardly anybody even got less than an A or a B. On the final day before summer break, her principal called her in for an end-of-the-year evaluation and said, I want to congratulate you on a great rookie season, especially on how well you did with your remedial kids. Jenny was confused. She didn't have any remedial classes. The principal pulled out the roster for Jenny's first period class and said, your first period class, it was remedial. Surely you saw that indicated at the top of the roster. And Jenny pulled out her own copy of her first period class list. And there at the top, plain as day, was the word honors printed in red ink. She had been given the wrong designation all year, and she had treated her remedial class like a class full of honor students. This was a big lesson for the principal and for a first-year teacher who saw her class through rose-colored glasses and indeed turned a class of remedial kids into a class of honor students. It was a lesson about positive thinking that neither of those educators would ever forget. In our next podcast, we're going to get into some weird and wonderful stories with my friend, journalist Natasha Stoynoff. She's going to join me to talk about some near-miss, divine intervention stories that happened in our own families. Natasha likes to call these stories ones of divine timing. I think you're going to have a lot of fun hearing these stories. I want to thank you for listening today. I'm Amy Newmark. If you'd like to read more stories and tips for positive living from the book I mentioned today, Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Power of Positive, then go to our website, chickensoup.com.